So today we'll be discussing about the role of central bank and the banker customer relationship. I think it's am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, thank you. So uh, let's see how the banking industry in India is regulated. There are mainly two important acts which are regulating the banking industry in India, and these the two acts are one is the Banking Regulation Act 1949, and the second one is Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. So these are the two important acts which are regulating and controlling the banking activities in our country. So RBI, Reserve Bank of India, and the central government controls the opening of branches to their winding up. That means that from the beginning, that's if you want to open a branch of any bank in India, you have to take a permission, you have to take a certificate license from the Reserve Bank of India. Thereafter only you will be able to open a branch of any of the banks in India. Suppose you want to close that branch. For that purpose, also you need to take a permission from the Reserve Bank of India. So overall, the entire banking industry is regulated or controlled by the Reserve Bank of India on the one hand and the central government finance department. So from the beginning to the end, entire activity is controlled by the Reserve Bank and the central government. Now, what is the definition of banking? Because you may be knowing, I know you are a lot of banking activities happening in your country. So how can you define the banking? Section 5B of the Banking Regulation Act defines what is banking. It says that banking means the accepting for the purpose of lending or investment of deposits of money from the public, repayable on demand or otherwise, and withdrawable by check, draft, or otherwise. That means banking is accepting deposits of money from the public. That means banks, what the banks are doing, they are correcting the deposits for the public. Suppose you got a surplus money with you, you can go to the branch and deposit money in the bank. It may be either saving bank account, it may be either fixed deposits. So the banking means the banks are accepting the deposits from the public. So whatever the deposits of money which are coming from the public, banks are accepting. That is one part of the definition of banking. And for what purpose the banks are accepting the money for lending or investment? See, the money which the banks are receiving, it is lending to some other person who are in need of that funds. Suppose you have a fixed deposit, you deposit the money with the bank, and you want to go for higher studies in Canada, you want an education loan. So you will approach the bank. So the money which the deposited by the customers, the money will be used for lending an education loan to you. So suppose you want to construct a house, you want to take a housing loan. The money which is deposited is been used by the banks for lending to you for availing a for construction of a house or purchase of a house. And another thing is that the money which is deposited by the banks, collected by the banks, will be used for investment also. This money may be deposited in the government securities such as security bonds, governments, lot of other security avenues are there where this money will be deposited. And another leg of this definition is that the money is repayable on demand. Suppose you have put the money in a SB account, you immediately want this money for some urgent needs. You can go to the bank, you can withdraw the money. So the money is repayable on demand. Whenever a customer demands the money, it has to be repaid by the bank. That is what is meant by repayable on demand or otherwise. Some deposits may be for a period. Suppose you have deposited a fixed deposit with the bank. The tenure of the deposit is for 1 year. So then after 1 year only, you will be able to, normal cases, 1 year only, you will be able to withdraw the money. So it has got a period for withdrawal. But in SB account, there is no such limit. You can, whatever the money you put in the SB account, the entire amount you can withdraw immediately. So the money is deposited by the customers are repayable on demand or otherwise and withdrawable by check, draft or otherwise. The money which you have kept in the bank or you deposited in the bank can be withdrawn by by way of a check. You can draw a check in favor of your friend. If she wants or he wants money, you can draw a check in your favor of your friend. So that he can go to the bank and collect the money. And bank can prepare a draft in favor of a third person if you want to pay the money to that person. So check draft or otherwise. So this money can be withdrawable by check, draft or otherwise. Since the definition is old, nowadays I think people are not using the checks or draft. Nowadays people are mainly using the online banking facilities or ATM facilities. You want to have a withdraw the money, you can go to an ATM and withdraw the money. Or you want to transfer the money to some other person, you can do a online transactions, online banking transactions. So the definition is very important. Section 5B of the Bank Regulation Act defines banking. What is banking? Banking means the accepting for the purpose of the lending or investment or deposits of money from the public, repayable on demand or otherwise, and withdraw by check, draft, or otherwise. So basically, the banks are collecting the deposit from the public, and this money which is collected with the banks are being utilized for lending to some other needy persons, or this money may be put in this investment options of the government securities or like that. And this money can be withdrawable by any person by way of check, draft, or otherwise. So this is very important. Always you should remember the definition of banking. Now, what are the categories of banks in India? You may find lot of banks in India. State Bank is there, uh, Canara Bank is there, Bank of Baroda. So many public sector banks are there. Now, lot of private sector banks are there. HDFC Bank is there, ICICI, Axis, Kotak Mahindra. So many other private sector banks. Apart from you got cooperative bank. So uh, there are three categories of banks in India. One is a body corporate constituted under special statute. To take the case of State Bank of India. State Bank of India has been constituted by way of an act, State Bank of India Act 1955. Like take the case of a Canara Bank or Bank of Baroda. This has been established by way of an act. So these public sector banks are being established on the basis of an act, on the basis of enactment by the parliament. So these types of there is a one category that's called the body constituted or under the special act, like State Bank of India and other public sector banks. Now take the case of a private sector bank. They are registered as a banking company under the banking under the Companies Act. So you take the case of Axis Bank, you take the case of HDFC, uh, HDFC or Axis Bank. These are banks registered under the Companies Act. So banking companies. Third category I already mentioned is cooperative societies or cooperative banks, banks under the cooperative societies. In our state, we have a lot of cooperative banks, different type of cooperative banks are there. These are coming under the cooperative societies. So these are the three important categories of banks in India. Now we can go to the banker customer relationship. What type of relationship banker customer is having, and how these banking transactions are happening. Basically, bank is a middleman between a depositor and borrower. As I told, depositor is depositing money with the bank, and bank is lending the money to a borrower. So bank is acting as a middleman. So whatever the money you are depositing in the bank, that money will be utilized for lending to some other needy persons. Bank is collecting money from depositor on lesser rate of interest. Just see the picture on the slide. When you are depositing the money, you will be getting a lesser rate of interest. Say in this case, it's 9% only. If you are putting money on fixed deposit for a tenure of 1 or 2 years, you may be getting around 9%. And what will be the interest when you are approach the bank for taking a loan? It will be definitely be higher rate. It may be around the 13%. You want to take a housing loan. Education loan, of course, it's a subsidy is there. Education loan rate is very high, low. Or housing loan rate is low. But other commercial loans, suppose you want to build up a factory, you want to construct a uh, commercial complex, all these cases, the interest rate will be high. So bank is lending to borrower at a high rate of interest. Recovering loan with interest is a risk taken by the bank. So you see the differences, between 13% and 9%, around 4% interest is there. This is the profit or the margin for the bank. But you have to remember that whatever the money lending by the banks, it may not have come back to the bank. The money, the account which is not able to, the persons who are not unable to repay the loans to the bank, that accounts will be classified as a non-performing assets. So you may be knowing that in banking industry, non-performing assets are playing a very important crucial role or important or crucial role, because it depends upon if the rate of the NPA rate is very high, that means that the bank is not doing well, bank is not performing well, bank profit will be less. So all depends upon how you will be able to recover the full money which has been lent by you. It may not happen in all cases. Definitely, practically, it is impossible to have a 0% of NPA in the bank industry. It may be around 4 to 5% like that. Only every time the government and the banks are trying to reduce the rate level of NPA, but NPA definitely will be there. But how you will be able to control the NPA, there the success of the bank depends. So, uh, take a case that you deposit money with the bank, and the money, the bank has lent to some persons this money, but they are unable to repay. So when you approach the bank to for withdrawing this money, can the bank take a stand that since the money which has been lent by us to a person is not come to us, as he is not able to repay to us, can you ask, can you wait for some more time, or for a 6 months or 1 year period? I think that is impossible. It cannot be done, because the money which is deposited has to be repaid to the customer. In case the bank failed to repay it to the depositor, then the bank has to go on liquidation. So the bank is making profit only because of the differences, but at the same time, you have to be bear in mind that whatever the money which is lent by the bank may not be able to come back. So the bank has to suffer the loss, and bank has to control the NPA. There only bank will be able to sustain in the market to make a margin in the market. So interest is a reward for taking risk. So bank is taking a risk by lending. Bank understands that all the money which has been lent may not be able to come back. There may be delay in repayment. So taking into consideration all these facts, bank is maintaining a margin, and on the basis only bank is making a profit and survive in the market.
Sir, pardon me for the interruption, but I
Yeah.
think there's a technical issue. The slide is still on the first slide. Now the presentation is on the first slide.
Okay. Okay. 1 minute. No, you are not able to see the present slide. This is, I
Right
think,
now,
fourth slide.
I
Fourth
no.
slide.
Now I'm seeing the
No.
fourth slide. How do banks make money?
Yeah, but other slides you missed it.
At first it was showing, but in I think we missed it.
Whether this slide is, have you seen the second slide?
No, sir, I have not.
Now, second slide is visible. Is it visible to you?
Yes, sir.
You want to repeat that second slide, or
No, sir, you can continue with the class. This slide would shared after the class if that's fine.
okay, okay, okay. This fourth slide is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So look at, please look into the slide. This is where how the banks make money. Uh, so suppose $1 is the interest the bank pays to depositors. $4 is in the interest rates bank charges on loans, and $3 banks keeps the difference. So whatever the difference between the lending and the deposit rates, bank is making profit of it, and bank is keeping that as a profit. So this is the way the banks are functioning and banks are making profit. So that depends upon how you are able to recover the loans. Suppose you are defaulting in recovering the loans from the borrowers, then your NPA will be very high. The bank will be in loss. So all depends upon how you will be able to recover the money from the customers in an effective way. There the bank's profit really lies. Madam, is it visible? Now we are in the fifth slide.
Yes, sir. The slide is visible.
Okay. Now we will discuss the important provisions of Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. Reserve Bank of India Act was enacted prior to our independence, but still it holds very good. And that's why I think there are not much amendments happened in this act. Still, the act which has been passed during the British period is very relevant. Now, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 was enacted to constitute Reserve Bank of India to regulate the issue of banknotes. So, the Reserve Bank of India has been enacted to make the Reserve Bank as a body an organization to regulate the issue of banknotes. You know that currencies are being printed by the Reserve Bank of India. Only the Reserve Bank has got right to print the currencies. If anybody prints currency, he will be in jail. So only Reserve Bank has got right power to print the currencies. So currency management is an important issue for the important role for the Reserve Bank. So whatever the currencies in India is been controlled and regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. The money is been printed, the currency notes have been printed by Reserve Bank of India. The supply of currency notes is controlled by Reserve Bank of India. So that is one of the prime role of a Reserve Bank of India in India. Second important point is to keep reserves for securing monetary stability in India. You all know that the Reserve Bank is controlling the fiscal or monetary policy of our country. Reserve Bank is controlling the inflation by reducing or increasing the bank rate, interest rate, etc. So Reserve Bank is keeping the money for securing the monetary stability of India. So monetary stability, maintaining a monetary stability is an important task for Reserve Bank of India. Third one, to operate the currency and the credit system of the country to its advantage. So Reserve Bank is controlling the credit system. If the uh, Reserve Bank is ensuring that banks are properly lending to the industry, banks are properly lending to the needy persons. If there is a failure on the part of the bank, Reserve Bank has got power to take necessary action against that bank. So credit outflow has been controlled by the Reserve Bank of India. These are the three important roles for Reserve Bank to play in our country. And as I told, banks need to take a license from the Reserve Bank before opening a branch. So banks need to obtain license from the Reserve Bank under Section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act for commencing on carrying on the business of bank. So no bank or branch can open without the permission of the Reserve Bank of India. Now, one of the important policy of the central government is for inclusive financial inclusion. That means that the banking account should be reached to all the persons, all the citizens of our country. I think to a large extent we are successful. Almost, I think 99% banks have people of this country have access to banking accounts. So this has enabled the central government to give the subsidy and other aids to the needy persons without the interruption of a middleman. You know that before introduction of this thing, introduction of financial inclusion, the subsidies and other aids were given to the needy persons to different mechanisms. So but while doing that, so many middlemen were there. The funds were not properly reaching to the needy persons. Now, after this financial inclusion, all the concerned officials, concerned persons, needy persons have opened the account. So it is easy for central government to route those financial aids to that banking accounts so that it can assure that the people are the financial needs, financial aids are reaching the people properly. So for that purpose, also the role of Reserve Bank is very, very important. And no company other than a banking company can use the words bank, banker, or banking as part of its name. It is very important as per the Act. No company can use the name banking who is not doing any banking transactions. That means that only with the permission of Reserve Bank, only with the license of Reserve Bank, sorry, a financial organization can use the name bank, banker, or banking. There were instances where the cooperative banks, so many societies were using the name bank. Reserve Bank has taken action against these societies. They cannot use the name bank unless it is permitted by the Reserve Bank of India. And the banks have to obtain prior permission of Reserve Bank for opening a new place of business or changing location of existing place of business. Suppose you want to change the existing banks to some other place, you have to take the permission of Reserve Bank. Because changing a branch itself is create a lot of inconvenience to people because those people who are in and around the branch, they may find difficulty if its branch is shifted to faraway places. So there were a lot of public interest litigations came before the High Court where the uh, the residents, the people who are staying nearby branches filed a cases against the bank for shifting. So shifting should be happen without any inconvenience to the people who are residing in and around the branches. So that is very important. For all these purposes, banks need to obtain the permission of Reserve Bank, or even to closing down the branches also. We need to take a permission with them because closing down the branch means you are curtailing the financial facilities to the needy people. So before that, you have to take a permission for Reserve Bank. Thereafter only you will be able to close the branches. Now, we should examine some of the important provisions of the Banking Regulation Act 1949. BR Act was enacted to consolidate and amend the law relating to banking and to provide for a suitable framework for regulating the banking companies. So, in order to consolidate all the laws relating to banking, the Banking Regulation Act was enacted in 1949. It basically deals with the regulation of a business of banking companies. It regulates the business of banking companies. If the banks are not are if there is a mismanagement in the mismanagement in the banks, the Reserve Bank has right to control or take over the banks, control our management of bank companies. That means if there is a something wrong happening in a bank company, Reserve Bank has got right to control that banking company. Reserve Bank has right to impose penalties for violation of any provisions of the Act. I think you would have been reading the newspaper. There are a lot of penalties have been imposed by Reserve Bank on many banks for not following the KYC norms or not following the proper accounting procedures. Now, this KYC means know your customer. That means whenever you are opening a account in the branch, you have to comply with the KYC norms. That means you should have a identification document should be there, either Aadhaar card or some other important document should be there, so that a person can be identified. Previously, there were a lot of accounts being opened on the fictitious names. So many Binami accounts were there previously. So all these Hawala transactions, all these funds were routed through all these uh, fictitious accounts. Now, Reserve Bank is very strict that this type of accounts should not be happen. If the banks are opening the accounts without having a proper identification process, then the Reserve Bank is imposing penalty on all the banks. In 1965, this BR Act was amended to cover the cooperative banks. Prior to that, cooperative banks were not under the control of the Reserve Bank of India. But now slowly, the Reserve Bank is putting more controls over the cooperative banks. Cooperative sector, as you know, it's not so regulated now. There are a lot of scams and frauds are happening. So now Reserve Bank is slowly bringing the cooperative sector under the banking regulation also. The act was also amended to set up depositor education and awareness fund to take over inoperative deposit amount which have not been claimed or operated for a period of 10 years or more within a period of 3 months from the expiry of the said period of 10 years. I think you would be knowing about the depositor education awareness fund. There were a lot of idle accounts in our banking system. That means that there are so much of amount is lying, crores of rupees are lying in the banks without any claiming by any person. That means that somebody would have opened the account and he may not be able to properly control, follow up that accounts. He would have died. The legalists are not having any information about this account. So, like that, likewise, so much of unclaimed accounts are there in the banking sector. So then, Reserve Bank come up with a policy that all this money which is lying idle for 10 years, that means the money which has not been claimed by any person for last 10 years, should be transferred to Reserve Bank account and within the 3 months after completion of 10 years. Suppose anybody has later on found that my father or mother has got an account in the bank, he can go and submit the documents, legal license certificate, other documents, so they can withdraw the money. So as a norm, wherever there is a inoperative account for more than 10 years, immediately this has to be transferred to the account of the Reserve Bank. And Reserve Bank will utilize this fund for creating awareness among the depositors. That is what is called the Deposit Education Awareness Fund. Reserve Bank is conducting so many awareness camps and making aware the depositors that you should have a proper accounts, you should have a proper nominee. That is very important. Previously, nomination was not compulsory. Suppose you have opened an account in a bank, so immediately you got some, unfortunately, you got been expired. So the legal heirs has to come to the bank, submit a lot of documents to claim that they are the legal heirs and withdraw the money. To avoid this inconvenience to the depositors, Reserve Bank insisted that all accounts you should have a nominee. That means you should nominate one person as a nominee. In case of your death, the money will go to that person. So in our bank, we have a lot of accounts previously opened where there is no nomination. We find it difficult to disperse to the legal heirs because they have to come up with the legal heir certificate or succession certificate. There may be dispute among the legal heirs, so we may not be able to part with that money. So many legal complications may come if you are not having a nomination. Now, Reserve Bank has make it very strict that all accounts, bank should make aware that depositor that he should give a nomination. If nomination is not there, it will be very difficult to release the money to the nominee to the legal heirs subsequent his death. So, for that purpose, all Reserve Bank has set up a deposit education awareness fund, and this money of for this fund has come from the inoperative accounts which is lying in the different banks. So as I told, RBI has got power to remove the chairman, director, or CEO of any banking company. Under Section 36 double A, under Section 36 double A of the Bank Regulation Act, Reserve Bank has got power to remove any chairman, director, CEO, or officer or employee of a bank company under the following circumstances. So, under these circumstances, Reserve Bank has got power to remove the chairman of the bank. One is circumstances. One is the public interest. If the Reserve Bank feels that the bank is not doing they are not doing the banking business in the interest of public, it can be chairman can be removed. Suppose you say that the directors are giving loan to their own uh, relatives. If they are giving higher rate of interest to the deposits given by the relatives, these cases, Reserve Bank has got a power to remove the chairman or concerned officials of the concerned bank. Second, preventing affairs of banking company being conducted in a manner detrimental to the interest of the depositors. Suppose the directors are giving loan to a person who does not have any who does not have any property, who does not have any business. Some fake documents have been created and banks started giving loans to that person. If such incidents come to knowledge of Reserve Bank of India, Reserve Bank has got power to take action against the bank. Reserve Bank can remove the chairman, concerned official from the board of directors of that bank. And it is a responsibility of Reserve Bank to secure proper management of banking company. If the management of the banking company is not doing well, Reserve Bank has got right to take over the bank. We have a lot of instances. Recently, the Yes Bank was in trouble. Reserve Bank intervened, it brings State Bank of India, and later on, Reserve, now the Yes Bank is doing well. Previously, also in our state, we have the Nedungadi Bank, which went into loss. Then Reserve Bank interfered, and the PNB has taken over the Nedungadi Bank. So many instances where the banks ran into difficulties. Reserve Bank has intervened and take over the management and protected the amount of depositors. I think there is no instance where the depositors lost money in our country. Wherever there is any problem in the bank, Reserve Bank interfered, and Reserve Bank has taken over the management of the bank so that investors' money will not be deposited money will not be wiped out. Suppose if the Reserve Bank has passed an order for removing the chairman or official of the bank has got a right to file an appeal against that order. An appeal against the order of removal lies with the central government. Such appeal has to be filed within 30 days from the date of communication of the order. So, if anybody is aggrieved, some bank feels that this bank action is not as per the law, they have got a right to file an appeal for central government. And if central government is convinced, the central government can pass or reverse order of the Reserve Bank. Section 36 ACA empowers Reserve Bank to supersede Board of Banking Company for a period of 6 months, which may extend up to 12 months. That is what I mentioned. The state Reserve Bank can intervene and take over the management. They can supersede the board of directors of that company for a period of 6 months up to 12 months. By that time, they can nominate their own directors, they can bring new persons in the board, and they can ensure that the bank is doing well. So these are the powers given to Reserve Bank to ensure that no banking company run into liquidation or no depositor will lose the money.